Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Horseman of Sleepy Hollow, an Immortal Warrior's Romance by Rebecca F. Kenney. Narrated by Dani, California. 1. Such an odd thing, the human head. The center of all thought and impulse, of emotion and intelligence, set atop a column so slender that an awkward fall could snap it. Its construction, the way it joined to the body, was either an incredibly elegant design or a rather foolish one. I could not decide which. In this rosy gown, with my golden curls pulled halfway up, my neck looked altogether too slim to support my own head. But perhaps its fragility fit my appearance, the perfect Dutch doll, all curves and dimples, ready to be trotted out before my suitors again. I smiled at my reflection, gritting my teeth so hard my jaw ached. What did my skull look like under my creamy skin and pink cheeks? I tried to imagine it, my pert nose disappearing, the flesh melting away. I would be an egg-shaped shell of bone, with a couple of empty eye holes, delicate ridges of cheekbone, and grinning jaws. "That dress is too low cut, Katrina." My mother's voice startled me out of my dark thoughts. "I have always said so. It is not right for a God-fearing girl to wear such a thing." I smiled, tracing my fingers over the tops of my breasts. They swelled upward with every inhale, a vision that would draw certain male eyes to me on this night. "I am no girl, Mother. At 20, I am a woman." She clucked her tongue at me, tugging the neckline up, moving the lace higher onto my shoulders. "You should be married by now, Katrina. You need to make up your mind before your charms fade." "I thought you wanted me to cover up my charms. Really, Mother, you should make up your mind." My mother cupped my face in her hands, a little too tightly for comfort. "Katrina, you must accept a proposal soon. Once you are settled, no one will have reason to gossip about you." I stepped back, pushing her hands away from my cheeks. "People talk about me?" "They wonder why you are not yet married, why you continue to turn down proposals or ask young men to wait while you decide. I hear the whispers constantly, how you are a fearful coquette, a tease, a siren." She drew out a delicate handkerchief and pressed it to her mouth, her eyes turning pink and watery. "Such rumors, Katrina. I will not have my only child spoken of in such a manner." "And if I choose one of these fine country lads, the rumors will cease?" I arched an eyebrow. "You will need to dress more modestly once you are married." My mother frowned at the scandalous length of my petticoat, which revealed my entire foot and ankle. "And you may not gallivant about the countryside with your friends, or tromp round with the farmhands, or run about on your own. You will need to stay quietly at home and tend to the affairs of the house, and set your attention to spinning and needlework." "I do not gallivant," I protested. "And if I follow the farmhands around, it is because I want to learn all I can about how to run this place properly." "Your husband will attend to that once you are married." "And whom would you have me choose?" I looked her straight in the eye, though I knew the answer she would give. Brom van Brunt is a strapping and worthy man, she said, strong and keen-minded in matters of the land. You have been pushing him at me since I could speak. I wrinkled my nose, poking at the few freckles sprinkled across it. My mother caught the expression. You do not wear your bonnet as often as you should, and you do not listen to me now any better than you did when you were 5 or 10 or 18. Yes, I would have you marry Brom. He is the best match in Sleepy Hollow, in the whole valley or the towns beyond. And you are great friends with his mother. Annika Van Brunt and my mother had been inseparable all their lives. They loved to tell us, their only children, how they were pregnant at the same time and gave birth on the same day, one at dawn and the other at dusk. Superstition flourished in Sleepy Hollow, trickling along its stream beds, hovering in quiet glades, whispering through the evening smoke from our chimneys, trailing misty fingers across the ponds and rain barrels each morning. And so it seemed to my parents, and to Brom's, that their children were destined to be paired forever. If I had merely wanted a handsome man with arms like a Greek god and the height of a hero, Brom would have been the man. He was striking in aspect, with prominent cheekbones jutting above the swath of his blonde beard, and the hair the color of ripe wheat waving down to his shoulders. He reminded me of a Viking of old, or what I imagined a Viking might look like. And his eyes, such an astonishing blue, vivid as the autumn sky over the orchard on a clear day. He and I made a gorgeous pair. With his physical strength and determined spirit, he could one day help me maintain and grow all the wealth my father had amassed. Brom was the ideal choice for my husband, which was why I resisted committing to the match, despite my amicable relationship with him. My friendship with his mother aside, he is perfect for you, Katrina, said my mother. She tucked away her handkerchief. Come, enough preening. We must receive our guests. For the quilting frolic, tell me, will there be any actual quilting, or merely a vast amount of matchmaking? My mother swatted my arm as we passed out of the bedroom together. Mind yourself, Katrina Van Tassel. Remember who you are, and try not to shame us. Give Brom the assurance he deserves, the promise of his place in your heart. I have it on good authority that he may ask for your hand some time tonight. If he proposes, you must accept. She swept on ahead of me, leaving me no chance to argue. On good authority, I muttered. From his mother, no doubt. Not that I bore her any real ill will. Annika Van Brunt was a soft, sweet dumpling of a woman with a cloud of pale curls, like a halo around her smiling face. I liked her because she was not afraid to laugh, loud and long, even at jokes that made my mother blush. I wondered if her status as a widow gave her a little more freedom to enjoy such things. If her husband were alive, would he have laid a hand on her arm and instructed her to be silent? No one would ever tell me much about Cor Van Brunt, Brom's father. The gossips and schoolboys of Sleepy Hollow circulated a dozen stories about how he had met his end, each more fanciful than the last, until I no longer knew what was truth. One element most of the stories shared was Cor Van Brunt's lack of a head when he was found. Some said wolves attacked him. Others blamed the woman in white, a spirit who was rumored to haunt the deepest places of the wood. But the most salacious of the tales blamed the elder Van Brunt's death on a shade with a particular connection to Sleepy Hollow, the Headless Horseman. Tales of the horseman's gory deeds predated the colony's war for independence. Some said he was a bold and bloody Hessian who slaughtered scores of men until a cannon blasted off his head. The idea that the ghost of a battle-dead Hessian stole the head of Brom's father never rang true with me. Yet I had never dared to ask Brom or his mother for the real story. I did not wish to press an old wound and cause them pain. As I moved into the front hall of our sprawling home, I saw Annika Van Brunt greeting my mother. Her smile broadened when she noticed me, and I found myself smiling in return. She held a basket full of quilting squares and supplies, and behind her towered Brom, with 2 more covered baskets, probably packed with delectable treats for the evening's festivities. The sight of Brom triggered a frightened flutter in my stomach. If he asked for my hand this evening, I could not refuse him outright without shaming him and his mother, and enraging my own parents. If he did have plans to propose tonight, I must do my best to avoid him. He made as if to approach me, but then his mother and mine steered him off to the kitchen to deposit his baskets. And while he was gone, my salvation arrived in the spindly shape of the schoolmaster, Ichabod Crane. Ah, Ichabod! He stalked the lanes and meadows like a strutting rooster, proud of his flock of mediocre students, whom he flogged with disturbing regularity. He had a large nose and a low forehead, a thinning mop of lank brown hair, and a body that stayed rail-thin no matter how much he ate, and the man could eat. My mother always sighed and checked the larder's stock every time she saw Ichabod approaching our home, which he had done often of late under the guise of teaching me how to sing. Today he looked especially awkward, with a lumpy cravat knotted at his neck, draped in a fine greatcoat he must have borrowed for the occasion. "Miss Katrina." He sauntered over to me, his pale green eyes sparkling with excitement. "Such a merry gathering this will be. I hope I may claim the honor of your company for a dance or two." "You may have all of them, Ichabod," I said recklessly, "and call me Katrina." Ichabod swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing dramatically. "It isn't proper, miss." "But I command it, and therefore you must obey." Of course, miss. I mean, Katrina." "Good boy." I leaned in and kissed his cheek, just a peck, but he reacted as if I had slapped him, pressing his palm to his face and looking completely overcome. His reaction delighted me. To be truthful, I liked playing with my suitors when they came to visit. If the gossips of Sleepy Hollow knew half of the wicked things I did, my reputation would be ruined. When Brom passed time with me, I loved watching his cheeks redden and his eyes burn as my fingers crept over his thigh underneath the book we pretended to read. My father, who would often smoke his pipe at the other end of the piazza, had never noticed, and I took care to only touch Brom's thigh, never letting my fingertips creep further inward. I loved the way Ichabod's voice would lurch into a higher register when I ran a finger along the neckline of my dress and tugged it ever so slightly lower while he was giving me my singing lesson under the elm tree. I played similar games with the other men who came courting. Whispers and stray touches, seemingly accidental, always intentional. It was a kind of power, one that I craved, but it was never quite enough, because I did not love any of them. Maybe if I could have mashed Brom and the schoolmaster together into one man, Brom's height, strength, and good looks, along with Ichabod's intelligence, voice, and dancing skills, then I would have had the perfect man, one worthy of my body and heart. But I knew no such convenient magic. Brom emerged from the kitchen, so I seized Ichabod's elbow and ushered him out the front door. "You must come and see the ducks and the geese, Ichabod. They are fatter than ever, and will make for delicious holiday feasting this year. And the squashes and pumpkins have grown since you last visited. They are immense, truly. Come and look at them." "Of course, dear Katrina, of course." He hurried along beside me, waving amiably to the other neighbors who were arriving. I had known he would not protest a tour of the farm. After all, Ichabod was more in love with our land, our wealth, and our house than he was with me. Avarice had glowed in his eyes from the moment he set foot in our home, shortly after his arrival in Sleepy Hollow. On that first day, he ogled the neatly hung tools along the piazza and eyed the china and silver in the parlor's corner cupboards. He had looked at my figure and at my family's glossy furniture with the same degree of lust. And yet I could not hate him. He was so very earnest about everything, so intent on working hard and making everyone in the valley like him. He was a man who came from little, with an eye to making much of himself by sheer force of will. I could not help but respect his ambition. Ichabod tugged on the lapels of his coat, squaring his shoulders, as if walking at my side were the greatest honor in the world. Or perhaps he was imagining himself as the proud owner of all that he saw. Clearly, he had taken pains to look his best this evening. "Your boots are so brightly polished," I remarked. "How did you keep them so clean during the long walk here?" "I did not come on foot," he said, lifting his chin. "I came on Hans Van Ripper's horse, Gunpowder." "What?" I smothered a laugh with my hand. "Gunpowder? That old firebrand is more devil than horse. He is more likely to throw you than to see you safely home, Ichabod. You must borrow one of our horses for the return trip." "No, no." Ichabod shook his head. "I promised to return Gunpowder to his stable, safe and sound, and that is what I will do. What is a man if his word cannot be trusted?" He opened his pale eyes very wide, as if to indicate that I should take special note of what he just said. "I agree. An honest and trustworthy man is a treasure, to be sure." I laid my hands on the top rail of the wooden fence and admired the plump-breasted ducks waddling beside the pond. The blue of the autumn sky colored the water azure and flecked it with snowy mirror images of the clouds overhead. Every bush rustled with twittering sparrows and robins, and from the tree across the pond echoed the shrill cry of a blue jay claiming his territory. Though the sun was warm, The breeze caressing my face carried the sharpness of coming frost. And then something else caressed my arm. The long, narrow fingers of Ichabod Crane.
"Katrina, I have something I would ask you,"
he muttered. My heart dropped with dread. In avoiding one proposal, I had walked into another. Ichabod opened his thin lips to say more, but at that moment music unfurled from the house, rippling across the fences and fields. Violins, fifes, and fiddles mingled in a melody too tempting to ignore. "Ichabod!" I exclaimed so loudly that he startled. "Shall we go and dance?"
"But—"
"You may ask me your question later," I said quietly, smiling at him and blinking my lashes. "But first, let us enjoy merriment and food with our family and friends."
"Our family?"
Ichabod's eyes glazed over with rapture. He did not speak as I hustled him back toward the house. Of course I was deceiving him, leading him on. But he and Brom, they were forcing me into it with their incessant pursuit of my affection. Some of the books I devoured secretly by night portrayed it as a very fine thing for a woman to have two suitors. The more men circling the heroine, the better, or so the stories hinted. But the reality of it was not very romantic. A constant fog of tension dulled the conversation whenever Brom and Ichabod were under the same roof. Even when I was with one of them, the shadow of the other loomed over our interactions. Each man spoke to me carefully, consciously, trying to impress me, trying to ferret out what traits of his rival I found most attractive, so he could endeavor to emulate or surpass them. It was exhausting. When Ichabod and I entered the house, we found the second-best parlor already cleared for dancing. My father caught my eye and beckoned me forward. The flush of his cheeks told me he had already dipped into the good ale.
"Everyone, here is my fair daughter Katrina. Is she not beautiful? A worthy heir to all I own, alongside a good sturdy husband, of course."
He knocked elbows with Brom, who stood nearby, frowning at the sight of me on Ichabod's arm. "A good sturdy husband is a wondrous thing," I said. "But I am not married yet, and now we dance." The other young lads and lasses of the valley cheered my answer. I whirled Ichabod into the center of the room, and we began to dance, while other couples gravitated toward us like chickens to feed. If I could have stolen the fire in Ichabod's feet for myself, I would have done it. The man transformed under the power of music. His lanky body turned loose and disjointed in the best way, curving sinuous as a snake, then snapping upright. His feet tapped a rapid beat against the floor. All his stiff manners were forgotten, lost in the joy of the dance. In his company, I could let myself go too, swaying my hips and twisting my body in ways that the gossips would no doubt discuss over their tea and mending for weeks to follow. Ichabod and I were lightning, bursting white and hot in this sleepy circle of simple folk with their modest twirls and careful steps. Whenever I danced with him, I wondered if maybe he was the right choice after all. If only I could ignore his harshness with his students, his lust for my father's property, and the foolish remarks he often made in company. If only he could always be like this, a demon of the dance, wild and untethered. But when the music ended, He reverted to the prim schoolmaster, blinking and nodding to those who applauded his performance, visibly swelling with pride. When he looked at me, his eyes glistened with the certainty that he was rising in the world, that he was mere inches from claiming the prize he sought. Me, I was the prize. The necessary accessory to wealth and position, and generations of his progeny to grace the glades of Sleepy Hollow. I imagined our children, snipe-necked little things with pale eyes and lank hair like Ichabod. In my mind's eye, they all looked like Ichabod, and none of them were like me. After the dancing, we wandered to the long tables set up throughout the house and on the piazza. The good people of Sleepy Hollow knew how to throw a party. Roast chickens sat on trays, surrounded by steaming potatoes and carrots. There were platters of smoked beef and sliced ham, trays of frosted ginger cakes and golden fried doughnuts, bowls of pears and peaches and plums swimming in sugary juice, plates of grilled fish dripping in butter and sprinkled with sprigs of herbs, and pies issuing fruit-scented steam through their lattice-work of crust. Ichabod practically drooled over the spread. He began heaping a plate, piling scoopfuls of potatoes atop slices of meat atop wedges of pie. Clearly, he would not be filling a plate for his dance partner, so I took a plate myself and selected a few strips of beef, some peas and carrots, and a crisply cut slice of pumpkin pie dripping with fresh cream. Then I walked through the house, searching for a quiet corner where I could enjoy my meal in peace. Unfortunately, all the rooms were filled with wrinkled, sharp-eyed grandmothers and lace-bedecked goodwives and jolly farmers. Children frolicked through the halls, rushing past the tables to snag sweets and then racing out the back door, hollering with victory. I followed the children outside to the back of the house and perched on the end of an upturned log, barely caring that my party dress would probably be smudged. The children were playing some complicated version of tag amid circles of rope on the ground, a game I had not seen before. As I watched, I noticed one boy hunched into his coat collar, crooking his fingers into claws and chasing the others until they ran squealing into a rope circle for safety. One of the girls had draped a white scarf over her hair and trailed after the others, wailing. When she touched one of them, they had to freeze in place until the count of 10. "The horseman is coming! The horseman is coming!" chanted the children in the circle. They broke and ran, while the boy in the coat loped after them. The rules made no sense to me, but the vigor and joy in their faces made me smile. Behind the children, above the golden fields and the jagged black line of the forest, violent streaks of color slashed the sky, a bloodbath of orange and dark purple and crimson. A brisk wind scoured across the worn dirt of the backyard, sending a fine layer of dust over my dancing shoes. I shivered and rose from the stump to carry my empty plate back inside.
"Are you hiding, Katrina?"
Brom appeared in the doorway, blocking my path. "I was watching the children play. It is endearing." I forced a smile and made as if to move past him. He sidestepped, his broad chest inches from mine.
"You should dance with me now."
"The dancing is over, Brom, and I'm tired."
"No doubt, with that display of yours. I hope you do not plan to make a fool of yourself in that way once you are a married woman."
What can I say? I love to dance.
A married woman may dance with restraint, not with such abandon, such suggestive movements.
He flicked the lace at the neckline of my dress.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?